Okay, I'm here for the final test of the OverUnder. What I've done is I've moved the expanded metal back further on the tray. So it used to be up here. I've moved it back about 6 inches, about as far as I want to go. Later on I'll just take the whole thing off to see what happens. Today I'm trying to remedy the black sand buildup on the lower section of the sluice. I've also added tape flaps to the matting, and underneath I've added Velcro, the soft side of Velcro that will help prevent material getting under the mat, as I had a problem last time with that. I have the sluice set back to my normal level. I might have to scoot it up once I get some water in there. So today we'll see how it goes. Okay, this will be my first clean out. Top tray looks like I would want the bottom tray to look like. Some pebbles building up underneath the expanded metal. If it's not like I want to see it underneath, I'll be taking this off anyway, so that really doesn't matter. Go ahead and take off this upper tray, see what the bottom looks like. Okay, moving that expanded metal did seem to do the trick. What I'm seeing here, this is my first scrubber, and this is about where I want it to be. It means it looks like it's exchanging pretty well. Still pretty soft in there. Not a lot of buildup. Still got some pebbles that I'd like to see cleared out, but I didn't let it clear like normal on my normal dredge. If you'll notice, I don't know if you'll be able to see, I'll try and zoom in. I think that's working. Lots of garnet in there. I didn't run it at full length like I normally do. I'm kind of short on time today. I just wanted to see what it would do if I moved that expanded metal. And here's my low pressure area, and that's still kind of getting built up in there. But when you move further back, these aren't quite full, so this will be turbulent water that'll kind of mesh around, keeping it a fluid bed. These larger pebbles you see in here are the ones that I dumped in from the wire mesh, so these aren't actually in there. You can see that they're just sitting right on top. Some of these smaller ones like this, these will go through the 3/8 and hopefully wash out. But they seem to be getting locked in there. This actually turned out a little better than I had expected. Next I'll take off the expanded metal completely and see how that does. Okay, I got about an hour of sunlight, so I'm going to do this pretty quick. What I'm going to do is suck up my tailing pile and put it back in the hole. I got a little bit of wire gold and some flakes out of that hole there, so I know there was a little bit of gold in it. What I did was took off the expanded metal totally. So we'll see how it goes. If I get gold in my tailing pile, I know that I'm throwing it out. Okay, filled up the hole. There's where the old tailing pile was. Dropped it right in here. I took the expanded metal off, and surprisingly, I was having problems with cleaning out the rocks on the top tray. What was happening was too much water was going down to the lower tray, and I wasn't getting enough force to push the upper rocks up. And then of course I ran out of gas. So we're not going to pay attention to this area, but we are going to pay attention to this part. So it looks like the riffles were still running pretty good. They're not completely full. Still have a lot of black sand. So if I get gold in this batch right here, which I'm going to keep separate from the first batch, I'll know that I'm blowing out gold. I've done all I can do. So hopefully that's not the case. Well, I'm back from doing my testing, fourth sequence, 6 times out, and I wanted to recap what my intent was. There were a few people that were thinking I was giving a review on HogMat, but that simply wasn't the case. What I was trying to do was set up a system similar to an OverUnder, to where the heavies could drop down into a secondary sluice and get processed through there without the larger material hampering that classification. So what I'm going to do now is go over how this is set up, and hopefully you'll get a better understanding of what I was trying to achieve. Give me 1 minute. So now I have the sluice box assembled. And what I was trying to do was have the material come in through here, go over a classification system, and I went through several different methods and found that this setup worked the best. So right now it went over 3/4 or 3/8 inch mesh, then it hit expanded metal, and then went onto the upper tray and washed out the larger material. My goal was to get all the heavies and smaller material, namely gold, to go down into this area to get processed by this secondary sluice on the bottom. What I needed to do was to get enough velocity to help process the material on the bottom. I truly wasn't worried about the top area, because I really didn't want any gold to be up in here. I wanted it to all process, fall down in here, process in the secondary sluice, and get captured in this HogMat. Why I chose the HogMat, it gave me a versatility of being able to change my riffle system every 6 inches. What I did find was, in my initial testing, that this area on the top and bottom was filling up. So what I have, take this off. So what I have on the upper tray is Razorback, then it went to a scrubber mat, then to another scrubber mat, and then to another piece of Razorback. And namely, all I wanted to do was have the larger material flow over this without getting stopped up. The smaller material, the classified material, would drop down into this area, which is UR mat. I've always had great success in my other build and in this build with gold collecting just right here in the drop zone. What this does is it creates a nice fluid bed. It's the initial process to where the low pressure area can drop out the gold, and then underneath, set the tray off. I went from a UR mat to a scrubber to razorback to a scrubber to razorback and another razorback. So this is what I'm dealing with. I have a 4-inch mini made by Keen. So it has a 40-inch sluice box, and it's run by a Honda 200 pump. I have air on it. So this is what I was finding during my test, is that my first problem was finding out or figuring out where the sweet spot was on my throttle. So finally got that worked out, and it was about 3/4. That seemed to clear out material pretty good and get the sluice box fairly cleaned out to my liking. My next issue was pitch or slope. As you can see here, I've left it at where I typically ran it, and what that would do would get my sluice box, the bottom of my sluice box, barely in the water, so just barely touching. So I figured that was my limitation on that. So I wasn't able to extend my sluice box out like I like, and it limited my flexibility. So that was another obstacle I ran into. So throughout my tests, I kept running into other limitations that I hadn't expected, or maybe I should have, but I didn't. The first test I had was, get this back up here. I had 1/4-inch punch plate up here, and what that was doing was mainly keeping most of the water on the top level. The heavies were dropping down, but I was finding a few little teeny specks of gold up in here on the upper tray. If you can imagine the upper tray actually being in here. So what I did was I took off this upper plate. This expanded was actually right there on the initial test. And what I wanted was to create some kind of turbulence to where I could get the heavies to drop down into, creating little pockets of low pressure. But what I found was that wasn't working out very well. So I moved it to the rear, and that worked out perfect. My heavies were dropping down, but now I was losing some classification. The next issue I had was buildup of material underneath the matting. And I remedied that. I'll show you in a second. By installing tape flaps on the lower mat, and it just needed about 3 inches of that, and some Velcro to hold the matting in place. But on the top tray, what I did to alleviate the issue, sorry for the quick movements, was I put Velcro, the soft side of Velcro, on the inside portion of the tray. And what happens is this is soft enough but firm enough to where the matting will hit this and stop the material from going underneath the mat. That worked out really well. I hardly got any material under the mats after I did that. So on the upper tray, I installed these tape flaps as well. Namely because I didn't want to put more of the Velcro at this level. Because believe it or not, this stuff sticks and it does not want to come off. It's really good. In fact, I had cut this open just a little bit so I could get some of the material out. But after I had done that and had made the changes, it wasn't necessary, so I could have kept this up here. But this, I had to get Goo Gone and razor blades and everything else just to get that tape, the bottom adhesive, off of it. So it does stick pretty well. My next issue was to actually capture gold. So I went through my velocity test. I was able to clear out the matting like I liked. One of the main issues is with the Mini is I just can't get the proper slope to clear out the mat to my liking and to capture gold. So it's just wasn't working out for me. And this was just for the OverUnder application. So I think I'm going to go back to my regular setup, which was the UR mat, manufacturer riffles with miner's moss and some expanded metal. I wasn't really finding, although I didn't give it extensive testing, that I was getting any more. I didn't think I would be getting any more fine gold than I typically had in my original setup. And I didn't like the limitations of trying to run an over-under in this scenario. Maybe in a larger dredge where I have a longer sluice box that this might work out, but it just wasn't working out. So this is the end of my test sequence. Maybe next summer, winter's coming on right now, is I'll keep this hog mat the way it is. People are running it like this in their regular sluice box without any problems, and a lot of people are happy with it. I don't have a lot of experience with that just yet, so maybe I'll give that a try next year. Or I'll just build a high banker out of it. Do a combination of miner's moss and hog mat. So, thank you for watching these segments. I hope you enjoyed it. Maybe learned a little bit. I know I learned a lot about my dredge. And you can never learn enough about it. It'll just help you out in the future. So happy hunting.